Friday, March 24, 2023, the Mixed Review Recording Studio, North Bay, Ontario. Dear Mixed Reviewers, we accept the fact we had to sacrifice a whole hour and a half on a Friday to review whatever movie we decided to talk about, but we think you're crazy to make us trim it down to under an hour for the free version. There's so much to say about this movie that we could say, in the simplest terms, in the most convenient definitions, but what we found out about this movie is that there are some goods and some bads, some maybes, some fun facts, and some laughs. Does that summarize this episode for you? Sincerely yours, Mixed Reviews.
Mixed Reviews.
Mixed Reviews.
I didn't know that was the intro to Mixed Reviews.
Have you guys ever been grounded?
Are you saying you've never been grounded?
I don't think I've ever been grounded.
You've never been grounded?
No.
Jackson, have you?
No, I've been grounded so many times. I once got grounded.
What?
I once got grounded. I was on the chat boards of the Red and Link community.
Mhm.
It's like pre-Reddit and everything, but it was basically like a Reddit.
Right.
And I was talking to people in the chat.
How old are you?
I was probably 12.
Were you saying
13.
bad things in this
No,
chat?
we were just talking about like Red and Link, I think. Like it wasn't like anything crazy.
So why'd you get grounded?
My dad caught me and was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm chatting with people online that I don't know." And very quickly my dad was like, "Oh, this is not good." And I was completely oblivious to the fact that I could be talking to adults with ulterior
A
motive.
predator?
Yeah. So
Wow.
anyways, I got grounded, so I wasn't allowed my computer. From that point on, I wasn't allowed to have my computer in my room. And I think I was like grounded from like TV and
Wow.
my computer and stuff.
That's wild.
What happens when you're grounded?
I just don't get to do the stuff I want to do usually. It's like a punishment.
Well, I know what grounding is.
Yeah.
I can't say I've ever reliably been grounded. Like,
That explains so much.
Oh,
I remember one time, I don't know what I did wrong. I don't know what happened. I think I was annoying my sister or something. My mom didn't like that. So she grounded me, but I was just sitting in my room for like 10 minutes. And then my mom comes in. She's like, "Did you learn your lesson?" I'm like, "Yeah."
See, I got sent to the stairs a lot. Like I just had to sit alone on the stairs, which I hated.
Well,
'cause
yeah,
I
but
like
that's
being-
a timeout.
yeah. Now that I'm
See, but that
thinking
was
about
just
it, I've never really been like grounded. Like my parents, sure, they've said it, but like they get annoyed with me so quickly because I'm so annoying sometimes. And they would never do no TV because that means they have to listen to me talk for like hours on end. And they never really stopped me from going out because, well, they tried to. They gave up at some point to stop me from going out as a punishment because I would literally just sit next to my mom the whole night and just meh, 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 meh. And she's like, "Oh my God, I had a busy day at work. Can you be quiet? Give me some peace and quiet." But I'd be like, "No, you're not letting me go out. You're not letting me on my phone." Blah, 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 blah,
That's
blah.
genius, though.
Except it wasn't on purpose. I was just really bored, had nothing to do. So I was like, okay, I'll just talk to my parents. They're like, "Oh my gosh, we made a mistake."
See, when I was a kid, I never, it's going to sound very sad. I never like wanted to talk to my parents at all or really anyone. Like
That's fair.
I wanted to just be
I was like
alone
my brother too.
and do my own thing. So I never really got into trouble because at worst I was just being a bit loud in my room playing video games or like downstairs, but I didn't like interacting with anyone.
Like people?
Yeah. I mean, I had a couple of friends, but I didn't really hang out with them a lot. I would just play video games with them online.
Sure.
So yeah, my mom wanted space from me all the time. She would like go up into her room and read.
Yeah, my mom would try and do that, but then I'd go in her room and I'd sit on her bed, be like, "Meh, meh, meh, meh," and then she would be like, "Okay, please go out with Amira. Like, I cannot take this any longer." I'm like, "Okay, sounds good."
See, I had no friends. I would just sit in my room and make videos all the time. So,
You totally had friends, bro.
yeah, but they lived half an hour away and I couldn't drive, so I never hung out with my friends.
Good point. FaceTime didn't exist when you were a kid?
I mean, when I was in high school, when I was a kid, I lived next to all my friends and we'd just be out doing stuff. But like,
Anyway, we've kept our guest waiting too long. So apologies.
Sorry, guest.
sorry, guess.
I wonder who it is.
But I guess I'll just give this guest a quick introduction to get this rolling. Very, very good friend of mine. You know this guest very well as well. They are quite a successful actor. They recently went on a premiere trip
Oh,
to Hollywood, where a movie they starred in
yeah.
premiered at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood.
is.
The one, the only Mattea Brotherton,
Yeah.
Jackson's sibling.
Hello.
Oh, I thought Mattea just wanted to watch Breakfast Club with us. I didn't think that's why Mattea. Oh, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, you
I'm an idiot.
Listen, Jax, I grew up with you. You've always been an idiot. That's just in your nature. So, yeah, I'm not surprised you were oblivious to this.
Thank you so much for coming on, Tay.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching the Breakfast Club with us, and it kind of makes sense now.
Thank you for
I
having
just
me.
thought you love. See, oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
Anyways, I just thought you wanted to watch Breakfast Club because you loved it.
I mean, I
and
will
we were
take.
boring it.
I'm boring. Excuse you.
Whoa.
And borrowing.
Oh.
I just
wait, what?
mumbled.
Oh, okay, sure.
Borrowing.
Yeah, whatever. You know, I have watched this movie over 70 times. I think I lost track around 30,
Oh my god.
but I feel like 70 is right.
That's a lot of time.
Lost track around 30.
Good lord.
That movie goes by fast though.
It does.
It does,
The
yeah.
majority of that movie is that one scene
Yeah.
What one scene?
when they're sitting chatting
And opening up with everybody.
Which, fun fact, that scene where they're sitting and chatting is actually, a majority of that was improvised.
It really shows.
Yeah, they had like a loose skeleton for that scene, but before they went to go film, John Hughes, who's the director, decided that he was...
Oh my gosh, John Hughes directed this movie?
John Hughes directed this, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Home Alone.
I love this guy.
My favorite director. I watch a lot of horror movies, so I feel like a lot of people will be like kind of shocked when I say he's a bit like... hands down.
It's complete opposite.
Yeah, Rob Zombie and John Hughes are my favorite directors.
What would a John Hughes horror movie look like?
I would love to see that, actually. I feel like that would be wonderful.
You tell me Home Alone's not a horror movie?
That's so true. Home Alone is terrifying.
Look at it from the perspective of the
He just wrote
burglars.
that one though. He didn't direct that.
Doesn't matter, still horror.
Same style.
Same, yeah.
But when he was directing this is one of like the first movies he ever directed. But he wanted to direct it like a play. And they actually spent 3 weeks with the actors actually
That's cool.
rehearsing this.
Because when I did I did a pilot for a show last year, and it was like a multicam, and that's what I wanted to do. Is we sat down and just had the script, and we just blocked it out and blocked it out and blocked it out and blocked it out because they're just my friends. I loved that because it just allowed for everyone to try things and to feel the space.
Yeah, as an actor, I think it's critical, and I think it's something that's really overlooked in a lot of shows. Like when I was working on Sunshine, I didn't actually sit down with the director or the producer to talk about my character until the middle of the first day of shooting. I think that when you are filming something, it is absolutely critical to get in the rehearsal time, because it really helps you in depth get to know your character and experience and become your character to the point where you can do stuff like improvise an entire critical scene, like this half-hour long sitting talking about just why they're there.
Yeah. And I like to, like, from a director's point of view, like for me doing that with my actors, it was helpful because it allowed me to feel the scene and realize the parts of it that weren't working, especially because it was comedy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the parts didn't work, and there was things that felt weird, especially because I was shooting multiple angles. It was like, okay, allowed me to think through all this stuff without being on set and in a rush and, you know, trying to figure out like in 5 minutes. I had time. I had to hold like a couple days to think through it.
That time to get to know your characters for the actors is so critical, and having directors' input especially.
I really like how they took that take of directing it like it's a stage play and kind of take that approach to the preparation of it, but still playing it as if it's a film.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to believe that these people are actors because they just seem so well acted.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that I love that I feel really lended to their performances as well, which obviously you can't do this in a big show with lots of locations and stuff, but they filmed the entire movie in sequence.
Oh,
which
it makes sense, right? Because
for an actor, that really helps keep you grounded in what is happening right now, what just happened, what is just about to happen. And I feel like, especially for me in film, you always have to be looking at what scene am I in? What scene did I just do? What scene's coming up? Where, like, there's so many little itty bits and pieces that actors have to do behind the scenes when you're jumping around, that just filming stuff in sequence, for us at least, makes it so easy.
I love that, like, the main reason all this kind of stuff happens is, like, I mean, there's the logistic part of it of traveling around, but so much is sacrificed at the will of budget and money to the point where you don't have rehearsal time, because then you have to pay all your actors and you have to pay these people and you have to pay these people.
Right.
You'd like squish the film down to as short as it can be to avoid longer days, right? To think if there was got a limited budget for a movie, you get that time to do all these things. Or let's say your actors don't come in for their own voluntary. That's not a word.
It is, but you used it
didn't
wrong.
use it in the right
No?
context.
If they volunteered to come in on their own time and rehearse, just think like how different the film industry would be if money wasn't such a important part of it.
Which
right?
this film too is also, it was a low budget movie. This might sound like a lot to viewers, but like for film people, we know that this is like a very small amount of money. It was only $1 million was their budget.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot, but that's indie. That's a low budget.
Yeah. And like, well, knowing actors, you do volunteer countless hours learning your character that you're not paid. You go home and you read your script and you like deliberate on who this character is. I've seen you do it and have heard stories about how, say I go to meet with an actor about their character and they said, oh, I spent all night last night working about how this person talks, for example. Imagine if like all that hours of unpaid time was spent with the director, you know, at least 1 or 2 extra hours of no pay. How much more helpful that would be for an actor versus just being in their own home, studying on their own time kind of thing.
Yeah, when you are working on a set, whether you're crew or cast, when you're on set, you eat, sleep, and breathe like the show that you're on. I feel like actors have a little bit more of the overtime stuff than most of the crew positions. Not all of the crew positions. Obviously, directors, DPs, they're like always working. But even on our weekends, like we're doing character studies, we're doing in-depth...
I mean, the good ones.
The good ones, yes. Yeah, I feel like the actors who really care about their craft spend all that extra time. And I like that's why we get paid so much, is we like put our heart and soul into what we are working on.
Would you kind of agree or maybe find some comedy in the fact that out of set time, actors and yourself spend so much time rehearsing, practicing, going over lines, and then on set time, you're sitting on set in a tent for 4 or 5 hours waiting for the crew to set up and you're doing almost nothing.
Well, even
aside from maybe looking at lines.
Even on set, if I have time to sit, I have time to work. So even if I'm just in the makeup chair, like sometimes, I do like to chat. I love to get to know the people that I'm working with, especially like during meal times and stuff. I like going and sitting with different crew members and knowing who is part of this film. But if I have time to sit, I have time to work. And I spend a lot of that time, yes, going over my lines for the next scene and like preparing for that and stuff. But just trying to keep myself grounded, trying to keep myself a little isolated, just so I can be in that right headspace when I get in there. Even if that is 4 hours. I remember there was one scene for Sunshine that I was told, okay, it will be like half an hour, start getting ready. And it was like a heavy emotional scene. It was a scene where I think the only scene in the whole movie where my character actually cries. When you act, we have this thing that we call our emotional tool belt, where we use things from our real lives, real emotions, real things that have happened to pull out the emotions that the character's feeling. And I had to sit in this state of what the character was feeling. I've lost everything. I'm alone. No one cares about me. And I had to sit in that for 4 or 5 hours because they were having problem with one of the lighting rigs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's intense.
But that's my job. That's what I'm getting paid for, right? Is to be able to be in those spaces, be in that negative area, and have to be okay with that because that's literally my job.
And that's kind of funny too. Working on Letterkenny, like some actors need to be alone and everything, and they get off set and they go stay away from a lot of people so they can stay in their mindset. I guess Letterkenny is different because it's a comedy or something like that, but Jacob Tierney or Derek Tiso has like this really intense scene. They're totally in character. The second they call cut, the character drops off of their face and they're just like the people who they were before they called action, and it's completely different.
That's funny.
These guys can just on the snap of a finger just turn on Wayne or turn on Glenn. It's impressive.
Yeah, that's a really lucky attribute to just have naturally for an actor. I'm always in awe when I can see people just snap, go back and forth. Like, I have to sit in the headspace of my character. I'm not method by any means, but I do need to be in that headspace, like prepared for the scene, for the emotions, for whatever it is. That to be able to just snap like that, I'm always awestruck by that ability.
Both aspects of that is impressive to me because I could never do either.
Right?
I would spend 8 hours of my day trying to make a tear and it wouldn't work. I'd be wasting everyone's time.
I don't know how people act. That's crazy. I had to pretend I saw a dead body in my one class, and I just could not be I was like, oh my gosh. And they had to end up narrating.
Did you see
like,
a dead body?
I had to end up narrating what was happening because I just couldn't. I was like, I was shaking and crying. Because, like, I cannot do that. I cannot do it.
It takes a lot.
Respect.
If you see an actor sitting by themselves, leave them alone. 1000%. If an actor is sitting by themselves, something is happening and they need to be alone.
Tay, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
This is a review of Breakfast Club, but I just want to know a bit more about your acting history.
Yeah, I think we're like, half an hour in and we haven't really talked about the movie at all.
We'll start getting into it, but I do want to ask you this. You went to school for stage and screen acting. What's the difference between acting on stage and acting on screen, and how to prepare for it? And actually, let's bring it back to Breakfast Club and how they prepared their actors for this film as if it were a stage show. Like, could you maybe break that down for us and like why that's significant?
Okay, well, the difference between stage and screen acting is actually a lot bigger than people would think. They're completely different worlds. On stage, everything has to be big so that the people in the back rows can see it. Everything has to be loud. Everything has to be overdone. Facial expressions have to be large. Like, stage, you have to be big. You have to. There's no getting around that.
Especially when, like, in film, a close-up, you see every little part of your face. When you're sitting in the back of a theater at some Broadway show, you can barely even see the people on the stage.
With film acting, everything is so small. Everything has to be brought down. Everything has to be subtle, especially with close-ups. Like an eyebrow raise, what people would normally do acting for an eyebrow raise is too much. It has to be like a slight twitch almost. Like, you have to be so minute, so careful, because the camera picks up every little detail. And that's one thing that I absolutely love about The Breakfast Club is they paid so much attention to those little itty-bitty details that add so much gorgeous subtext to this film, which is another reason why I'm so glad that they rehearsed this like a play. Not in the big acting, big voices, big movement, but they were able to get those little itty-bitty intricacies that you just could not get if you didn't have rehearsal. If you don't have time spent with the other actors, you don't get to work on those little looks, those little side glances, you know, the flare of the nostrils, the twitch of the corners of you don't get to work on that if you don't get rehearsal. Especially without rehearsal, you never know how the other actor's going to play off of it.
Yeah.
And so you might both come in with different things prepared for the scene.
When we were watching, I kept thinking too, like, just the amount of visual they use in it. Let's say Werner's talking to them all. You can't talk to each other.
You will not talk. You will not move from these seats.
And instead of just seeing him spew out all these things, you see Claire and Andy looking away from each other like they're not going to talk. And then you cut to Bender. And you see it happen rather than him just saying it. And there's so much in this movie that is just that visual aspect of it. And I love that. And that probably is stuff that benefited from rehearsing. I've been in plays myself where it's important to go through what everyone is doing on stage because everyone is visible all at once. It's important to see those little things that actors can do, right? And picking up on that. And I think this film did that really well with lots of the visual they had in it.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. That's one thing that I'm really thankful for theater for teaching me before I did go into film, was that even if you're a background character and even if the attention is not on your character, you should still be doing something. Even if I'm not quite on camera, I'm still doing what I'm supposed to be doing because it helps the other actors in their performance as well. If I'm still doing my movements, if I'm still doing, because you can see in the camera then, you see their eyes moving, you see them clocking what you're doing, you know, all those little intricate things that, you know, if I was just sitting on the other side of the camera reading my lines, you wouldn't get that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah, that's...
Which is another reason why they filmed this like a play. You get all of those little itty-bitty tiny things.
This isn't necessarily a criticism, but I think a good thing about this movie that A, makes it one of the most famous films of all time, and B, why so many people just love this movie, is it didn't do anything too crazy. It's just a character piece with good writing, and it's lighthearted, and it's like a good look into just people.
This absolutely was John Hughes working on a character piece. John Hughes, actually, most of the stuff that he wrote, he would do in a weekend. Breakfast Club was written in 2 days.
That's so insane to me.
Yeah, I think that is an absolute credit to how great of a writer-director he is, that he can do something this amazing in 2 days. A character study this in depth. I have a bunch of fun facts about the movie if you want to hear them.
Ooh, I want rapid fire us some fun facts.
Rapid fire fun facts? All right. John Hughes owned the school that a lot of the interior stuff was filmed in. We know, especially in our town, a lot of production companies actually own their own schools. They can store stuff there, they can film there, run their production base camp out of it. It's really nice to just have a big building like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, he owned the school for the production, and it's in a bunch of his other movies, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Weird Science, 16 Candles, Pretty in Pink, and National Lampoon's Vacation.
And if I'm not mistaken, they built the basement that floods in Home Alone in the pool of that school as well.
Yes, they did, yeah.
Whoa, that's so cool.
I knew that one from Movies That Made Us.
Wow, I really wish I owned a school.
That's so funny to me too, is you'd build it in the pool so you could actually flood it and not worry about it.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hello, listeners. It's Jackson's mom. I'm here to tell you about our Patreon. If you subscribe to our Patreon starting at $3 a month, you can unlock early access to videos and podcast episodes, be a part of live episodes, receive free monthly gifts, and hear full versions of our podcast with bits like this.
I think I already said them, but also some fun words I liked. Buttface, turd, and wastoid. Those were great insults that I wrote down to use in the future.
John Hughes avoiding swear words, in his, which this one does have swear words, but like think of like Home Alone and other stuff. Some of my favorite comedy is non-swear words are so funny.
The severity of the F word in this movie actually has some like significance to it. Like anytime it's uttered, it's meant to be a very emotional hit. You know, like the one time Bender says F you to the principal as he's leaving, and it's just like it's like John Hughes uses this word to be significant for these characters rather than it just being like a misused throwaway kind of curse.
Yeah.
So, subscribe to our Patreon today. The link is in the show notes. And now, back to the show.
All right, thanks for staying with us. Okay, where were we?
How long is it?
It's only an hour and a half.
They're pretty standard.
It was actually, the original runtime, what it was supposed to be, was 2.5 hours long. There were so many scenes that were cut from that movie that it's like absolutely ridiculous.
I believe that.
A list of scenes that were cut from the movie. Carl, the janitor, brutally predicts that the 5 will end up in 30 years. Claire will have 2 boobs jobs and a facelift. Brian will have become very successful, but will die of a heart attack due to stress at a high-paying job. Allison will be a great poet that no one cares about. Andrew will marry a gorgeous airline stewardess who will become fat after having children. And Mender will have killed himself.
Now, was that like, you know how when him and the teacher are having beers, is that when he like says all this like as a prediction?
Or does he say it to them?
We don't know where it would have fit in the movie, and actually everything that wasn't in the movie was burned. And John Hughes wanted The Breakfast Club to be the one that he had, the only copy of it, so nothing could be leaked.
Wow.
And so anything that wasn't in that movie was burned on the cutting room floor.
Wow.
Why is it called The Breakfast Club?
That's a good question.
I know a lot about this movie. I do not know that.
Hi, everybody. Jackson and Mattea's mom here to interrupt this podcast to apologize for my children for not knowing where the title of the movie came from. Fun fact for you. The film's title comes from the nickname invented by students and staff for Saturday morning detention at New Tier High School, the school attended by the son of one of John Hughes' friends. Thus, those who were sent to detention were designated members of the Breakfast Club. And now, back to the podcast.
You have more rapid fire?
All right. Yes, next cutscene. John Bender wasn't originally going to walk to school, but instead he was dropped off by his dad in a rusty truck. His dad would have thrown his lunch bag at him, saying, "You're a waste of lunch meat."
Which is funny because he didn't end up eating lunch.
Yeah. When all of them fall asleep, it kind of cuts awkwardly to the principal being in there going, "Wake up." There was actually supposed to be a dream sequence there. In the dream sequence, Allison imagines Andrew as a gluttonous Viking, Bender as a prisoner, Claire as a bride, Brian as an astronaut, and herself as a vampire.
There's a lot of really, like, with some of the stuff you're saying, there's just seems to be a lot more character building, like a lot more ways to visualize these people kind of like as their stereotypes, which is one thing I love about this movie is like they build stereotypes for each of these people, but they break down, like they say at the end, they are just all kind of one of the same. And I think that's my all-time favorite part of this movie is the fact that it's such great characters because, one, they all play their stereotype well, and they all do fit into it really well, but there's more to it.
They made the stereotypes human.
Yes. And that's what I love.
Next fun fact, and I hate this one, Nicolas Cage was one of the original casting choices to play Bender.
I heard about
That's
that.
hilarious.
Actually, I could see him.
How
doing
old would
that.
he have been in 85?
I think he was pretty old.
They all look old. Yeah, they all look like they're not, except
Wow,
Brian.
he was kind of hot when he's a teenager. Everyone take a look.
Molly Ringwald, who plays Claire, and Anthony Michael Hall, who plays Brian, were actually the only ones still in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell.
And it was actually really cool because John Hughes set up classrooms in the school that he had, and they studied in those classrooms like a real school setting.
That's
Yeah.
funny. Rather than a trailer in some lot. That's funny.
Yeah, which I think is, from the interviews that I have seen, they said was awesome because they actually really felt immersed in that location.
That's cool.
You know, they're actually going to school and, you know, this is actually detention for them, which I think is a lot of fun. The weed that they smoked was actually oregano, which I have smoked on film sets, and oh my gosh, that sucks. Yeah, typically sets use blends of different herbs. I know when I worked on Sunshine, all of the joints and cigarettes that we smoked were herbal blends. Those also weren't great.
Yeah, I packed them.
Right, yes, I forgot. We made an assembly line in the living room and all packed those cigarettes for
funny.
like 5 hours.
I have a photo of that, I think, on my phone.
And that was all I did pretty much that whole day.
Jeez.
Yeah, drugs on set are never fun to do. That's all I'll say. I don't enjoy doing that part.
Especially because it was such a heavy part of your character in Happy Sunshine.
Oh yeah, I think in Sunshine, in total, that whole film, I don't know how many cigarettes my character smokes, but I know, like, between all the different takes we had to, like, for every scene, I probably smoked 100 of those things.
So why was it not just a regular cigarette? Why was it a herbal cigarette?
When you're smoking regular cigarettes, especially if you're doing take after take, you know, you smoke a cigarette, it gets smaller. And if you have to reset, you have to get a new cigarette. Buying that many cigarettes not only would get really expensive, but
How bad more than maybe 3 would be back to back, let alone 20?
a major health risk.
Yeah.
Anyway, last fun fact, all of the scenes at the beginning of the film are crew cars. Not cars that they
That's
paid for
great.
production. Those are cars that are owned by people who
See,
worked in the crew. I believe that the BMW is John Hughes' car.
That's funny.
Shocker.
And also, Brian's mom and sister that drop him off are his real mom and sister.
Aw.
That's funny. But I love that line from his sister.
Yeah.
I don't remember what
She just says, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd really like that opening scene where you kind of see, like, because lots of the movie is about like their home life. There's so much that goes into that. So what a great way to show that with having them all be dropped off, and then you have these conversations. And for some, you don't have conversations. You see Allison's parents drive away when she goes to look, which also shows the fact that she wants their attention, she doesn't get it. And then you just full on see Bender walk up at the exact same time.
I love that you mentioned that, because that was one of the first things that really hit hard for me, is that having seen this movie once before, obviously you kind of get into the mindset that like these people are all meant to be different and then all come together and to, you know, in one way or another kind of be the same by the end of the movie. But watching it again, you know immediately they're all the same from the very beginning. They all have something going on. The who they are versus who their parents want them to be are completely at odds with each other. And it's the same for everybody. They have similar issues, and that's how they can come together. And it's all there from like the start. And I just thought that was like amazing way to introduce these people as being different but the same.
I like too with Werner as well. Like throughout the movie, you see him be just as bored as these kids are. You see him being like, "Wow, these kids are changing. I can't relate to these kids." And then, you know, the janitor comes to be like, "No, you're the one that's changing, not like, you know." He has just the same amount of growth. By the end of it, he's like, "Oh, we really are just the same. I'm just critical of these kids because I care what they think about me."
Yeah.
Which is the exact same as, you know, lots of them. They care what people think about them, right? He cares just as much about what these kids think about him, even though
and
he won't
reading
admit
that letter at the end of the movie just kind of hammers the nail into the wood for him on the fact that like
Yeah.
these kids only think that his first impression of them is who they are, and they've learned through the film that they are not who other people label them as. They are individuals and who they want to be.
Yeah.
But to them, it doesn't matter. Like they're worthless in the eyes of the adults. Like, so, you know, you can paint us with your labels. And I think the principal kind of gets that by the end of the movie. You don't see it. You don't see it click for him. You don't see a change in his actions. But I think it's really good directing in a way that you don't need to rub things in the face of your audience for them to get it.
You don't need the close-up shot of a tear running down his face as he reads the letter.
Yeah. It's like you can just kind of assume that he gets it emotionally.
After they have that conversation where he's like, they've changed, no, it's you that's changed, we don't see him again and for the rest of the movie until he reads that letter. He doesn't see the kids off. He doesn't go into that room again. Like, we don't see him until he reads that letter. Like, it's almost like he's hiding.
Yeah.
Like, he has kind of come to this realization that he's not quite ready to face his decisions yet. But he understands that he's maybe screwing up a little bit. And I really like that. I like that we don't see him again.
It's almost like Andy's whole monologue, which I love that monologue because one, with the camera, back before I get to my point, with the camera, as it dollies in that, like the circle, it kind of gives you that feel of, at least how I interpret it, it's like you're looking at him from all their perspectives, especially because you go around the shoulders of you go over Bender and Claire's shoulder. I love that. But also kind of with that, my point, you kind of see him be like, how do you apologize? Something like that. Like, that literally is like this. He's in the same situation as he did something stupid that he regrets to try to play up his reputation and then instantly regrets it. And now, you know, how does he apologize for something like that?
Yeah, how is that principal going to apologize to Bender for almost getting into a fist fight with him? Because he's just annoyed that he's rebelling. I really like the theme of this whole movie is breaking labels and kind of like being more than a stereotype based on who you associate with and how you interact with people and what you do in your own time kind of thing. This movie really opens up, I feel, in like a kind of a thin way, because this is a very like 80s stereotypical kind of movie, and to its credit, breaks the stereotypes, but it doesn't necessarily address like more kind of issues. Like there's no people of color, for example, like those kind of like it's all just a bunch of white kids. But I want to see like a new version of the Breakfast Club in modern times with like more diverse kind of issues. I think that would be really like an awesome take.
I would love to see a movie like this that's about issues deeper, about, you know, stereotypes of minorities.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
All right, I would kick myself in the butt if I didn't bring this up. Did Allison, at the end of the movie, when she changes and Claire gives her that big transformation, does she quote-unquote sell out by changing herself for someone else?
Yeah, and it's stupid. So just to get the jock to love you, you have to de-goth yourself. That's stupid. In my opinion, that's stupid. Because you know what? Brian stays a nerd. Claire stays a preppy.
I don't think she was expecting him to like her. She just
No,
kind of went out and
honestly,
was like, oh, you...
It annoyed me that she was the only one who underwent a physical transformation, and then all of a sudden everyone loves her, even though everyone was avoiding her-ish at the beginning. Anyway, that was odd. Even the actress didn't like how she got de-gothed, so that's actually what I was doing. I was reading.
This is the first person that's shown her kindness in a very long time and wanting to become more appealing and wanting people to see her in that positive light that she's not normally seen in. I was very much an Allison in high school, so I understand the transforming to become something that people want to see, you know?
You know, who's to say the next day she doesn't show up looking how she normally shows up?
Yeah, like I feel like on an emotional level, they were building connection. Like Andrew was genuinely showing concern and interest for her through the movie as well. I think there was like enough emotional basis there for it to at least be a little like grounding and like a little be a little realistic.
I like the relationship with Allison and Andrew a lot better than I like the one between Claire and Bender. I feel like
is to go against her parent.
Her main drive for being with Bender, and he even says it out loud in that scene when they're in the closet, is to rebel against her parents. And I feel like that's a relationship that's going to end super toxic, super messy, with people bringing trauma from that. I feel like Allison and Andrew's relationship is something that could actually be really healthy for the both of them. That he's with someone that's going to call him out when he's doing things just to go along, and she has someone who's actually going to give her loving attention.
I agree, yeah.
But I feel with too, like, you can see Bender really cares about all of them too, right? Like, he has his guard up and he's going to be loud and you know, truthful. But I feel like, let's say the two of them kind of brought their guards down. I feel like there could be something healthy in there. You know, if they both like brought their guards down and, you know, if Bender kind of stopped putting on his whole show, right?
You see through the movie that Claire has a heart for people, and Claire has shown that she wants to be kind and she wants to be nice to people, but her social group that she's in isn't that stereotype of being nice and caring to everyone else. But you can see Claire wants to and gets pushback because of her social background. Bender has a history of being kind of shunned and being thrown away, and he has to make it his presence known for anyone to pay much attention to him, and he has to be an asshole because he has to fend for himself. Bender's not used to affection, right? He's used to aggression.
Yeah, he's not used to being able to trust people.
Exactly, and she wants to open up to him, and then I think that's where it could be healthy, is where if Bender lets Claire be nice to him and accepts that affection,
and returns it too.
Exactly.
Bender would need to be willing to do a lot of work on himself as well. Needing, like...
He doesn't seem to be unwilling because he accepts the earring from her. That's almost like a mark of territory, if you think of it like that. Because Bender has all these girlfriends that Claire points out, but he's wearing her earring. He seems like he's making at least one step of progress by the end. And on Brian, I have so much to say about these little moments. Brian making the decision to not follow the rules and being proud of himself for it, because he pats himself on the back. He's got a big old smile on his face when he finishes writing it. It's like Brian grows to be an individual and to say what he's thinking and to go against the rules, and he's happy about it.
Yeah, Brian is one of the most beloved for almost everybody because it is such a deep change that so many people can relate to that I feel like I need to be something for other people.
I agree.
I feel they all are kind of...
But Brian, I feel more so is this is what is expected of me. And I have been doing what it has been expected for me for so long, and I am over it. I'm done with it. I'm going to start doing things for myself now. And I think that for a lot of people, that's what we struggle with.
Yeah, I'm coming to this realization here that The Breakfast Club is a film of first steps that I think everyone who's grown up can relate to. There's that first step in your life where you actually take a step towards who you're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like we're watching a visual essay of these individuals discovering who they want to be in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why this movie is so influential, is because they're all making that step together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, think back to when you were in high school and you were like faced with the problem of like what you're going to do and who you're going to be in the future. And then your group of friends kind of evaporates as you move. You know, you had your group of friends in high school and now you're not necessarily friends with them.
Yeah.
However, you probably have a group of friends from high school that there's like a changing moment in high school that you're now friends with.
Yeah.
And it was probably just a group of people who eventually got to that same point in your lives that now carried you to who you are now. And that I have that story. I know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This movie is us witnessing the birth of an adult friendship from a group of people who had never interacted before. And I think that's kind of like a cool thing.
I still hate Claire.
I kind of like Claire.
Yeah, because you saw her underwear.
No. I think I just like her because she wants to be someone, but is concerned to be that person. And she wants to be loved. She wants to be kind. She wants to be protective. She wants to be there for people that she cares about. But she's kind of terrified of not being able to do that.
She's stuck in the pressure of her friend group.
Yeah.
Well, even when they get high, the first thing she says is, I am so popular.
Yeah,
Mhm.
what?
It's almost as if she's trying to remind herself that this me sitting here smoking weed with you guys is not what I'm supposed to be doing right now. You know, there's so much other stuff expected of me that it's like she's trying to reality check herself, and in doing so contradicts herself so much.
But it's the same with Brian too. Like he's like, well, I shouldn't be here. You know, I should be studying. I should be doing this, right? But they all would benefit more from not being there.
But is that true? Because this seems to be a very pivotal time in their lives. This
A pivotal
one day, you know?
truly.
Pivotal breakfast.
Lunch.
Oh man, I cried. I was actually in tears when Brian was asking if they would all be friends on
Yeah,
Monday.
that's why I hate Claire. That's so mean. No, probably not. Blah, blah, blah. Shut up, bro. Like, at least Andy had the decency to, like, not say anything
Mhm.
and, like, deny it and be kind. Claire was just...
But that opened up for the conversation, the storytelling part of it. That opened up the whole division part of the high school, right? Where everyone is so divided. There are a few people that, you know.
But still, that's mean. And she made Brian cry.
I think, too, that Claire is so afraid of giving up what she knows and what she has that she feels such a pressure to be who all these other people expect her to be. She has this image that she's just at the point in that movie that she is just not willing to give that up yet because she's afraid.
I think that can appropriately be tied to her fear of becoming like her mom and dad.
Absolutely.
By the sounds of it, it sounds like her mom and dad's marriage is like malicious compliance. I think Claire clinging so much to her group of friends that we only hear about is her like desperately trying to not have a malicious compliance relationship with other people, you know? Because if she fears like if she associates herself with nerdy kids, her friends are going to judge her, but it's going to introduce like tension that she doesn't want because she sees that at home. And she kind of wants to avoid that. So she feels the best way is to just completely take one side of her social life and just completely ignore everyone else who her friends don't like.
Yeah, things are so chaotic and horrible at home that the security of things being normal at school, I can see being very compelling for her.
But at the same time, too, like, let's say I was with these cool people And if I had a friend that was nerdy or something, I'm sure I'd done it. And I mean, I'm not fond of that I would do something like this, but let's say I was with cool people and one of my friends that they didn't think was cool, I would have put it off that, oh yeah, well, that guy's such a loser.
Yeah.
Then you're a POS. Sorry.
Have you never found yourself in that situation?
No. Because I don't dog on... Anyway. Maybe you're Claire.
Well, at least now I know Asha hates me.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, that's our episode for
I
today.
think my boyfriend's a mean person. Popularity does not exist. So why do you care? Why would you care? Why would you say no, they're weird? It was just a joke. Why? You be you, like who you like. Don't be ashamed of who you're friends with.
You've never
That's
been.
what this story of this is telling. Is
You just said you do it.
I'm sure I'd done it, and I'm not fond of that I would do something like
So
this.
you've
but
never been in a social situation where you're with people that you enjoy hanging out with, and they're dogging on someone else that you enjoy, and you stuck up for that person.
I stuck up for the person.
Yeah, you didn't just go along with it
or not say anything.
or not say anything.
Dogging on someone who I like doesn't happen often because my friends aren't really mean.
That's. I wish that I was able to have that experience.
Well, Brian's friends wouldn't have necessarily done it too, right?
What? I'm confused. You're saying stick up
there's
for
the
a
different,
person?
Yeah.
There's the different
That's the opposite.
aspects of it where people don't feel comfortable enough in their friendships.
Then they are with the wrong friend.
That's what the whole point
Yeah,
of the movie is
that's the
trying to
whole
say.
point.
Yeah, but she doesn't get on with her new friends.
And
She's dating Bender now.
yeah.
That's literally what her transformation was.
But it would have been, I think, more influential if she started dating Brian, who she openly admitted that she would never associate with.
Well, she goes on to say quite a lot that her friends wouldn't associate with any of these people at this club.
Other than Andy.
Even then, kind of, yeah. Like, she still wouldn't go out with Andy's friends when he invited her to the party.
I thought they were in the same friend group, because doesn't she say, Andy and
she
I have
said-
it different.
She says friends like my friends and Andy's friends. Not to necessarily
Right, the
assume
jocks,
they're the same
the popular girls, the nerd, the emo. It clicks all the boxes. I do like that, because then more audience appeal. Everyone feels like they're being represented and whatnot.
Well,
Who am I missing?
I have no more notes.
I don't think I took any notes.
I know Asha
I think I
had
already
some
said
funny
them,
notes.
but also some fun words I liked. Butt face, turd, and wastoid. Those were great insults that I wrote down to use in the future.
John Hughes avoiding swear words in his, which this one does have swear words, but like think of like Home Alone and other stuff. Some of my favorite comedy is non-swear words are so funny.
The severity of the F word in this movie actually has some like significance to it. Like anytime it's uttered, it's meant to be a very emotional hit. You know, like the one time Bender says F you to the principal as he's leaving, and it's just like John Hughes uses this word to be significant for these characters rather than it just being like a misused throwaway kind of curse.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's we could talk about it for hours, I'm sure, but we've already
It won't take up so
way
much.
too much of your time, Taya. But thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, of course. This is so nice.
Of course, thank you. And I'm just gonna plug my movie because
Yes.
I'm that person now, apparently.
Yeah, I was gonna make sure because we talked about it.
Go watch Happy Fucking Sunshine
It's a good one.
for buy and rent on Apple TV, Prime Video, and YouTube Movies.
I highly recommend it. And Mattea's in it.
Mattea's the lead,
I am the secondary,
technically.
but I do narrate it, so technically.
Hell yeah, you did.
Well, thank you for coming
Yes, thank you so much.
Of course, I love you guys.
on. I love you
Love
too.
you too.
Y'all are my family.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, Jackson literally is, but like,
I'm, as your mom puts it, the sponsor child part of the family.
Asha, yeah. Basically, we are actually.
Yeah.
thank you for having me, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Bye.
Okay.
Hey there, I'm Jackson's mom, and this has been Mixed Reviews with Tom McMahon, Jackson Brotherton, and our in-host genius, Asha Joseph. This episode was mixed, mastered, and edited by TheOldManDave. Be sure to follow our podcast on your favorite podcast app and join our Patreon for extended, ad-free, and bonus episodes. The link is in the show notes. This has been a Vanish Entertainment production. Thank you for listening.
Does that make you want to listen to the full version on Patreon? Then subscribe now. Patreon.com/Vanish Entertainment. Sincerely yours, Mixed Reviews.